Welcome back to my channel, scribes. It's Pika Lee, and I thought it would be really fun to do a very different video. And when I mean very different, I mean we all know that we're all following the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial because, you know, duh. And I really wanted to bring a little piece of that into my channel because I think there was some very valuable information. Now, I watched the trial for probably 3 reasons. The first being, it teaches me a lot about how the entertainment industry works, because we're hearing a lot of testimony about how options and how it affected and impacted their work, and that directly impacts writers, because the first thing that happens when you get your script into production is the pre-production stage, which would be attaching an actor. Now, you've heard this plenty of times, so I really wanted to get a little bit more deep into that content that they themselves did get to provide to the world and comment a little bit on that. The second reason, of course, is because it's, well, highly entertaining. Entertaining because we get let into their lives, something that's very exclusive, which is why a lot of people have been very invested in this from the start. Now, the third reason is the human interaction and the human connection. You can see that there's been a whole host of videos that you have been able to view that break down so much about storytelling and how effectively they're speaking their stories to the world, how they're presenting themselves, and the really interesting thing for me is actually being able to analyze this behavior. So let's take a look at some of the clips that I've pulled. So this first clip is actually Amber on the stand. She's testifying about her 3-option contract. And of course this contract was for the DC Universe characters, for Mira that starred in Aquaman and Justice League. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, the Justice League DC Universe is actually owned by Warner Brothers. So you can already see that we've got 2 large brands, and that is Warner Brothers versus Johnny Depp's Disney. I just wanted to point out the differences because there's been quite a lot of talk about Johnny's Pirates of the Caribbean 6. And since that is a totally different company, it is a totally different way of contracting. But for now, let's get into this clip.
Marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1258, it's dated September 21, 2015. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
It is the Justice League Aquaman contract.
Explain to the jury, please.
It's structured like a 3-picture option. I signed on to do Justice League, where my character was introduced. The fee is, you know, small relative to what it will become if and when you do the other options or movies in that under that umbrella. So it was the contract for Justice League, which could then become Justice League 2, or it could be Aquaman, or it could be some other movie within the DC universe. The second picture ended up being Aquaman. Each time the fee goes up, but...
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation, lack of foundation.
Overruled.
I think the reason why they didn't want to sort of speculate on that is because she was sort of... Amber was mentioning that it was a 3-picture deal with Warner Brothers, but it wasn't specifically stating which movies she would be in. So that would have to depend on what movie the studio actually wanted to move forward with. And they were already binding Amber in a 3-picture option, which, I mean, if you think about it, an option is just that. It's an option. It doesn't mean anything unless all of these things are requirements are met. And what that means is whatever requirements that they stipulate in that contract for her, which we may never see, that has to be met so that they can move forward with the 3-picture deal. So she is already going to be in 1 picture, and if they move forward with her for the next 2 pictures, if there is 2 more pictures, they would of course have more outlines. They would, of course, have more things listed already for Amber as far as what was negotiated that she would get paid, which she'll speak to soon, and of course, any other stipulations or riders that were included. And a rider could be anything that she has negotiated that she must have for her to move forward with the picture.
All right. And if we go to page 6, So what was your fee going to be for Aquaman? And what was it for Aquaman?
1 million.
Okay, and then was there also box office bonuses, opportunities? Okay.
Yes, there are box office bonuses. If it makes a certain amount in the box office, you get a bonus.
Okay.
Just to stop there to talk a little bit more about the box office bonuses. So there are 2 numbers that are presented when you are being offered an option, which is, of course, it's an agreement for you to play that character that has, like I said, everything that's outlined in it that stipulates the conditions for each party to work in that picture, whatever that picture might be. So there are 2 numbers included in that contract. You have sort of a ceiling number, which is the highest maximum amount that you can get paid, whether that's a combination of bonuses and the base pay that they give you for each movie that they've got you put down for in this contract. So if it's just one movie, you're told cumulatively you will get, $4 million. And that could be with, box office bonuses and whatnot. You might have a stipulation that says you could potentially, you would get that amount at the very high end. At the very low end, it's sort of your base pay. And in the contract, it's stipulated that should they make over a certain amount of revenue at the box office, you will make that amount of money on top of that base pay or that minimum amount that you are going to get for certain. And this is very common in most contracts, and especially with contracted individuals such as Johnny Depp, who may receive additional bonuses for other bigger stipulations besides just box office amounts.
What was it for picture number 3?
Aquaman 2.
Okay, and what was the fee under the option agreement at that time?
2 million.
Okay.
So both actors and both writers have similar contracting. So yes, there will be a top dollar amount and there will be a lower dollar amount. And you also, in the same way that actors get paid in small checks over time. And by small checks, I mean it's broken down. It's not the full amount right away. So you do get paid in multiple payments, and that's throughout the process. Now, for writers, it'll be a little different because, of course, you want to have drafts that are going to be included, so you will get paid stipulation purposes for each draft. And that keeps going on and on because there will be multiple rewrites. So pretty similar. That's why I thought it was really highly interesting to listen to this particular case and how their contracting worked. Now I'm going to move on to the next clip, which I also thought was fascinating.
Second page, how much were you paid for The Stand? It's at 6C.
Now, just to preface this, The Stand is actually a TV show, so now we're going into TV show contracting. And so she's going to read for you what her fee was for The Stand, and this is per episode. So remember now, episodes could range from the full season of however many episodes, 8 to 10 to 32 or whatever amount, depending on where this is going to be going, this particular TV show. You're going to have to account for the amount of episodes, and then you'll get a contract that stipulates if you're a recurring character and what your character is and what episodes you might appear in and how much you might get for those episodes. So this is her looking at that contract for The Stand and taking a look and letting us know exactly what she got paid per episode for that TV show, which I've never watched, by the way.
200,000.
Oh, 200,000 an episode.
Okay. Let's pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1266.
It took her a little while to find that.
Have you been able to get any work since that time?
I have done one small independent film.
Okay, and tell the jury what that is.
I shot a film in Guatemala. It's a small independent, meaning it doesn't have distribution or, it doesn't distribution or anything. It's a lower budget film that I've been attached to for many years called Into the Fire.
Okay. And 1266 has as of January 13, 2022. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, when did you actually film for this in Guatemala?
March. I believe.
Just so you know, indie budgets, low budgets, are usually just sourced not through a big company with big distribution access. So what happens with an independent film is you do have the same structure of you want to go the proper route with having those contracts in order. So she most likely received the same sort of contract. And of course, the fees would just be a little bit different. And what she means by it didn't have distribution is likely that it could have been one of those films that was going to seek distribution after it was filmed. And usually gathering the money for that type of production will be under about $5 million. If she is part of SAG, she will need to be paid a specific rate. So there is a minimum rate that she would get paid still. So that's sort of how that protection for SAG would work, which is to make sure she does get a fair wage, even in an independent film. And that fee would just be a little bit less because of the budget that it has. Now, usually when people have an independent film, they're going to take it to a film festival and mostly to get distribution. So when someone's taking their film to Cannes or they're taking it to Sundance, a lot of times they may not have distribution. And they may go there and someone may pick them up, a distribution company, who can get them access to the markets that they need. And that's because they probably didn't have the funds or the connections, and that's what makes them sort of an indie film, because they took that money from their own sources, their own investors, and they promised probably a smaller return, but with a better prospect of hopefully getting some good distribution and becoming, well known.
March of this year.
Okay. And do you recall what your compensation was for that?
I don't off the top of my head.
If you can look at ALH 17628, it's paragraph 6A.
Oh, 65,000.
Okay.
So as you can see, her rate has drastically dropped. Now let's kind of compare the three that she's mentioned. She got about $2 million for Aquaman, which is a large budget Warner Brothers DC Universe film. She then, for episodes in a television show, got $200,000 per episode. And then for this independent film, she got $65,000, which is what I mean by that drastic dip in how much she makes, but still having to make enough under the SAG-AFTRA rules. And so that's sort of how you can play it to get a really great, well-known name attached to your film, because that brings in distribution, and that is kind of worthwhile. It does bring in money to you, and if you do a really great job and it wins awards and all this sort of stuff, you do become pretty known, and that's because you've got a pretty well-known person to star in your independent film, and that is goals, isn't it?
And have you participated in Aquaman 2?
I have.
And tell us about that.
I had to fight I fought really hard to stay in the movie. They didn't want to include me in the film.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained objection.
So a really interesting thing about this is she says that she had to fight really hard to stay in the film. What I find interesting about this is she already had a contract, unlike Johnny Depp, who we've heard so much about how he doesn't have a contract and how Pirates 6 doesn't exist. Well, if you go on IMDb, there's something there, and it says Untitled Pirates movie, and it does say that it is in a pre-production stage. So there is, in fact, something that is in the talks for the Pirates universe, which is what I'm going to go with because, I mean, at this point, it's the Pirates universe. So Disney is in talks in some form with another Pirates film. and he is one of the main characters for those title films. So I think that the fact that they have mentioned it is not in existence, it is not something he can have a contract for, is probably because it's in pre-production, which means there's probably no script yet. Someone has to write the script. But Johnny has mentioned that he himself feels a real attachment and would like to executive produce and would like to really craft a story for him, which means he might want to write that and have a little bit of access to writing that script, which means that he would need to be attached like right now, not when it's ready to be in the phase where you are solidifying your actors. So at this point, it's sort of strange to me to hear that, because absolutely contracts can be verbal, especially someone like Disney who has a very long, prominent relationship with Johnny. Now, this isn't to say I know how their business runs. I understand that if you don't have a favorable outlook, having a name attached brings in money and audience, and make sure you reap that money back when you actually put it out in theaters. So at this point, I can see Disney would be slightly apprehensive with everything that's going on. You can't really blame them. It's their whole reputation, and it's supposed to be a family-friendly company. So absolutely, I get that. But in the case of DC Universe, they've already put her in a 3-movie contract, which means that she has to be placed in 3 films unless she violates some sort of requirement that they have within their contract. Or at least that's what I believe. If I'm wrong, put it down below. I'd love to hear more about this. I'm still new to the whole contracting and entertainment business, but I am pretty well versed in some of the things that do come up pretty regularly, and it's really great to have this information and even just talk about it with someone, because this is something that I want to pursue professionally, and I absolutely have to be on top of all of the newest information coming out. So you can see why I absolutely loved following this whole trial from maybe not beginning, but at least to the end. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this little break from the typical content that I usually have. I sure did. I have been absolutely enjoying learning a little bit more about the industry through these interviews and through these testimonies, and getting to see a little bit inside of a pretty exclusive club, and that is the entertainment industry.